Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Pamela. I was doing this search online and I was looking for search terms to see what people are looking for as far as like hands and your hand analysis. One of the things that I found is that there's a lot of people looking for love lines. And I know this isn't a term that you particularly use. Can you explain what the term is in hand analysis and how it relates to love lines?
Yes. Actually, it's called heart lines. That's the technical name that hand analysts or palmists talk about. But it's the same thing. It is the line in the hand that has to do with how you express love and how you want love expressed to you as an overview. So, yes, love lines is a great word to be talking about these lines in the hands. And I'll show you where they are because a lot of people are not familiar with that.
That'd be great.
So there are four of them, the passionate and the big heart, and then I'll show you the hermit and romantic idealist in a minute. But these lines are curvy. Let me annotate so we can see that all of the heart lines start underneath the pinky over here, and they go across the hand. There we go. Well, it isn't drawing for some very weird reason. There we go. And this one curves up to the middle finger, which is called Saturn in the world of hand analysis. And this one also curves, but it curves up to the index finger. You can see the difference, right? This one has way more curve than this one does. This one's more of a slope. This is more of a dramatic curve. So the passionate heart line is very curvy and goes up to the middle finger and then the index finger. So curvy heart lines need to express how they feel. This is a requirement. So both the passionate and the big heart, even though they do it differently because one's short and one's long, they need to express how they feel. That's not true for the other two heart lines, which are straighter. The hermit and the romantic idealist are both straight heart lines. Love lines, we can certainly call them love lines, where this one is straight and goes all the way over to the index finger. That's the romantic idealist. And the hermit is straight but goes to the middle finger. So these two, the hermit and the romantic idealist, are very cautious and reserved about expressing their feelings. So you can just see by looking at the shape of the line, there's a difference just in the shape, which is going to make a lot of determinations about how that heart line or love line actually expresses itself. I'm going to close this now and talk a little bit
Yay.
about the structure of these love lines. And it turns out I have recently found some notes that I had written down years ago because I've been doing this for over 28 years. I found some notes that the heart line, technically called the distal transverse line in technical palmistry, starts forming and is completed about 13 weeks. Starts at 11 weeks after conception and completes about 13 weeks after conception, which is before the fingerprints. The fingerprints start forming around 14 weeks and complete around 16 to 20 weeks. So this commitment is a soul agreement that's already happened when you're in the womb. You've already chosen your communication style for how you express love and how you want love expressed to you. I just find that completely fascinating. Because they're lines, they can change. They don't change a lot, but they can change. Lines can change, the fingerprints never do. So that was a really helpful piece of information for me to comprehend that you're born with a style. You're born with a style of how you approach your emotional world. So you have 3 different heartline types on one hand. You have very complex heartline types. I have the same heartline type on both hands, which does not happen that often, I've discovered. I did a few years ago, I did a research project of about 200 sets of handprints, which means the left and right hand of 200 people. I discovered that about 2/3 of those handprints, so 2/3 of the people, have a different heartline type on their left hand than they do on their right hand. So they have different communication styles, different ways they express love, different ways they want love expressed to them. So it's not just always the same for everybody.
So is there anything that you can tell about like the difference between like one hand from another? Like what does that mean? Or does it matter?
It does matter, actually,
Okay.
yes. The right hand, this is my right hand, how we approach the world. In many countries, you shake hands with your right hand when you're meeting somebody. So this is the expression of you out in the world, is your right hand. And your left hand is your more personal life, your more personal, close relationship. So if you had one heartline type on your right hand and a different one on your left hand, you may behave differently in your home life than you would in your work life, for example, or your public networking life, or your social life outside the house. People at home may be totally surprised when they see you out in public, if you had different heartline types, about how you behave differently. They're surprised, or you meet somebody, right? You're dating somebody, you're out in a social situation, and then you start getting serious with them and you get to know them, and now your other heartline type shows up. And sometimes, most often, they're completely opposite heartline types. So it's a fascinating journey to understand. I remember in 2002, I published my first book on hand analysis, which was on these love lines in the hands. At the time, I was convinced everybody was going to want to know what their lines were, because it would help them so much in their relationships and how to communicate with their partners and their children and their family members and friends. Well, I was surprised that not everybody wanted to know that. I did sell hundreds of books, and I have sold hundreds more since then and revised it a couple of years ago. But I was just so surprised that not everybody wanted to know this. I don't know why. Why would everybody want to know this? It's a mystery to me.
So I have the copy of your book right here.
Yes.
Your love designs. And I was reading in the very beginning of it, like the introduction of your book, and it says you just wanted people to experience better communications in their relationships. So maybe you can talk a little bit about like a practical application of like how would knowing that really help somebody? What's the purpose of these heart lines?
What's the purpose of the lines? Yes. So the heartline love lines in the hands. The purpose of these,
Bless you.
Thank you. The purpose of these lines is, number one, how your style, how you express what your style is, how you express love. Number two is how you share feelings or not. What circumstances do you need to feel safe to share feelings? The number three is how you want other people to show love to you. Is it a tangible expression? I'll get into some details about this. Is it a tangible expression or is it a verbal expression? I know there was a book that came out years ago called The 5 Love Languages, and some of those directly apply to these love lines in the hands, but it's not a direct correlation completely. And the last purpose is how you want people to hold you and create space for you and be in relationship with you when you're sharing your feelings. What matters to you? about that environment and your relationship with the other person when you're sharing feelings. How do you want them to treat you? How do you want them to honor you and listen to you? What circumstances are required for that to work? So that's the purpose of this line. It's the emotional line in the hands. This is where the emotion resides. Everybody has these love lines. Everybody has these love lines. We saw the 4 major archetypes. There are combinations, which we'll be covering on a different video. There are combinations of these lines that can show up on one hand. As we've briefly discussed, Dawn has 3 different types on one hand. It's very complex when that happens. That's the purpose. I can't remember what your other question was.
Thank you. I was just wondering, like, if there's a practical way that you can explain, like, how that would look in real life. Like, if 2 people have 2 different heart lines, what does that mean to them?
So I'll give you the most common example. The most common heart lines I see are the hermits and the big hearts. The hermits are short and straight, and the big hearts are long and curvy, so they're completely the opposite of each other. This is the most common combination I see on people's hands, left hand, right hand, different heartline types. These are the ones that I see the most. I don't know if these are just self-selected people who want to have readings or come to classes, but it is what I see the most. And a lot of other hand analysts have that same experience. And as a side note, all of this data comes from people who have self-selected to show their hands to a hand analyst at some point, right? So it could be the general population, but it's the self-selected group that actually has said, yes, print my hand. So a hermit, being short and straight, is very private and very cautious about sharing feelings. The big heart, on the other hand, literally wants to talk about feelings a lot and wants to know how everybody's feeling, loves connection, how profoundly deep can we go in our personal feeling communication. And the hermit's going, how much space and time can I have away from feelings? And how can I not share how I feel except with people I totally trust? And the big heart's like, oh, I'm in a new group of people. Let me talk with them and discover who they are, and let me share how I feel with them, even though I've never met them before. And the hermit's going, I would never, ever do that. I have to develop this trusting relationship, right? So if you have these on your hand, you have a hermit on one hand and big heart on the other, you're dealing with these 2 opposite energies. And depending on which hand they are will depend on whether that's an out in the world or a more private experience. But if you're in relationship with somebody who has this opposite heartline type, you can see that already with just knowing this little bit about it, that there could be conflict in communication and wanting to get information, feeling information from a big heart's perspective, from a hermit partner who just doesn't want to talk about it.
I think that is so fascinating because I'm remembering times in my life where I've been completely hermit. I mean, it's one of my favorite expressions. Just, my feelings are mine. If I think about them too much, like my brain might explode or something.
Right.
But I just remember, like, there'd be times where people would ask me, like, how do I feel about something? And I'm like, what do you mean? How do I feel? And knowing that, I mean, I wish I knew it when I was younger, because knowing that now gives me kind of permission to not be so judgmental about other people. Why are they even asking? Like, it's not because they are, trying to manipulate me or whatever. It's just because that's the way they're wired. And I think that that's fascinating. So I'm so happy I've learned that from you.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's the way they're designed. They most likely came in with those heartline types and have been practicing most of their life this communication style. This relationship with feeling style is very familiar, comfortable. It's what I do. Don't try to make me change, especially for the hermit. Hermits are very slow to change. They don't like change. They resist change. Don't make me have to tell you stuff I don't want to tell you. It's none of your business. Very much a hermit perspective. Frustrating for the big heart, but very much a hermit viewpoint. Yeah, I know. I wrote a book in 2000 that I published in 2009. That's also available on my website. That is called Relationship Success for Singles. I actually have a copy of it up here. Relationship Success for Singles, Life Partner or Life Problems. And it has dating stories in it. What to do on first, second, and third dates depending on your heartline type.
Oh.
Fascinating, because I took the major characteristics of each of the 4 heartline types and created stories about how to act or not act, or what you might be tempted to do, but what if you're dating somebody who has a different heartline type, and wouldn't it be great if you could look and figure it out? As one of my girlfriends said, it would be cheaper to buy this book than it would be to buy a new dress to go out on a date. I love that.
It just makes the introduction like like a whole different possibility. Like you can go, hi, and then
Right.
like, this is my new code way of saying hello to people. Can you do it, please? And like, let me take a picture of you while you're doing it, and then go home and analyze it, or make all your dating people do this for a profile. Yeah, that would be a great idea.
That would be such a great addition to profiles, is to have to show your heartline types.
Oh,
my niece recently, I was in Hawaii a couple months ago, and my niece texted me and sent me pictures of a guy that she was dating, first date, and showed me his heartline types and wanted to know what that meant. And based on what I told her, and then I sent her my book when I got home, based on what I told her, she decided not to date him again. She's got hermit heartlines on both hands.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't a match for what she needed. So it was funny. I just thought, yes, that's the whole purpose of this book.
Right. Everybody needs someone like you that they can walk through that journey with.
Yes. And I have talked with singles groups about their heartline types, because I feel like it's a very important conversation. It would save a lot of heartache for people in the dating process if they could understand their love lines, if they had a relationship with their love lines, if they knew what motivated them.
It brings a lot of self-awareness too, I think, like just knowing yourself and knowing who you are as far as your love lines, your heart lines, and your communication style. I think it brings a lot of freedom.
It does.
I found that all of the work you do helps me understand myself and brings a lot of freedom and permission to just communicate the way I do, and yet not make other people wrong for communicating in their way. It's very
understanding their way, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Really allowing them to communicate in their style.
And then you figure out how to come together. I mean, I think that's the beauty of it, is like you end up coming together and having a deeper relationship, more intimacy, which I know you've written about a lot also.
Yeah, that's my major motivators for what I do with hand analysis is for people to be seen and accept themselves and ultimately love themselves. If they are challenged around the love word, they can't accept themselves or appreciate themselves. And of course, all the work you and I have done around self-appreciation has become a big part of that. But that's my desire. That's my passion, is like, I want people to be seen so they can be true to their design. That's my favorite phrase, is you just be true to your design, and I can decode your design and help you understand it. And I'm really good at that. I've been doing this forever.
Right.
I've read over 50,000 hands. I know what I'm doing, right? I'm really an expert in this area. So that's my passion. I just want people so much to get out of the pain that they're in around feeling devalued and not being seen and trying to pretend that they have to be somebody other than they are. And the freedom that comes with being true to who you are. That's my passion.
It's wonderful. Is there anything else you want to share about the purpose of heart lines and love lines?
The other thing I wanted to say is the reason that we're starting with this video. Ultimately, this is the beginning of a series of videos that we're going to be talking about being highly gifted. The reason that the heart lines and love lines matter from the beginning is you need to understand your communication style about how you feel. What I've discovered is a lot of people who are highly gifted and not willing to own it or diminish their ownership in it, the biggest issue is their relationships. I don't want to own this because it's going to change my relationship with my children, husband, wife, family, community, clients, whatever, right? But it's a relationship issue. It's a relationship with self issue, and it's a relationship with other people. So knowing what your communication style is, knowing and taking ownership of, and having permission to be true to your design of your love lines is super, super important in order to have authentic feeling communication about your gifts. That's why we're starting with this.
Yes, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me
You're
about
welcome. My
this.
pleasure.